Hello everybody, John Scotwell back here again with another video, and today I bring you my review of Dragon Ball Z Light of Hope Episode 1 titled Pilot. Now, if you've not seen this specific episode of this web series, then definitely go check it out. I'll have a link in the description below, so you can definitely check out the episode, because this review may contain spoilers. So, nevertheless, let's get right down into it. First off, let me give you a brief overview of what this overall web series basically is. It's based around the specific storyline in the Dragon Ball Z universe of History of Trunks Special. And basically where that takes place chronologically in the series is after the Frieza saga, beginning of the Trunks/Android saga, and it ends at the Cell Game saga. So that's basically where it's at, and the great thing about this specific web series is what Robot Underdog did, which is instead of doing the cliche or the more popular thing to do, which is to do like Saiyan Saga type of stuff and Goku versus Vegeta type stuff, they decided to pick a very niche kind of storyline like the History of Trunks and just based around an entire series on that storyline, which is, I think, one of the greater things that they did, because, you know, even though History of Trunks is an awesome special, it's an awesome, you know, storyline, and it's just a great piece of Dragon Ball Z history, it's definitely one of those things that people don't go directly towards. You know, everybody usually goes for, you know, Cell versus Gohan. People like to go towards Super Saiyan 3 Majin Buu stuff. People like to go to Saiyan Saga, you know, and so on and so forth. So it's not really the straightforward popular vote, but it's also one of those great things that what they did was genius, in my personal opinion. Like, if there was anything that I can top as like the biggest thing that they did right on their decision on the side of their decision making on this specific Dragon Ball Z web series, it's definitely basing it on that specific storyline. But anyways, first off, let's get right down to the episode at hand. The episode starts off with a montage of the basics of the story that it's based off of. I mean, if you've not seen History of Trunks storyline, then definitely check that out, because even though it gives you a brief little synopsis of what this is all about in this one montage, it's definitely, if you're not a DBZ fan, or a History of Trunks fan, or just a fan in general of this type of stuff, then generally you have to check it out beforehand, because then there's going to be things that you don't understand or don't really get the basics of. But overall, in this episode, it kind of gives you a lot the non-mainstream DBZ fans, if that makes any sense. But overall, the montage does a good little brief synopsis. I had a few problems with it overall, because it's not like the opening of the anime, which I thought was a big downfall. I mean, granted, a lot of things in this one episode, and based off this one episode, the overall web series is going to be very different from the anime/manga, which I guess makes sense, you know, because if this series was just a shot-for-shot copy of History of Trunks, then it would be a complete waste of time. So I can understand where they changed things, but overall, I would have liked that opening. I mean, when you go into History of Trunks, that great opening when Gohan's trying to make it home and he sees his father die, it's just a moment of like, this is the beginning of the end for these kind of people. You know, everyone is waiting outside, and they know that this happened, and that's really sad. But overall, I think they did a good job at telling the story anyways, without having to show that. And I also liked the monologue that's given, which I think is dubbed over with their version of Future Trunks. I'm guessing we don't actually see Future Trunks in this specific episode, but I'm guessing that the person who was talking at the beginning is Future Trunks. I could be wrong about that, but that's just my guess. But anyways, moving off the montage, we get into the actual main antagonists of this series, which is, of course, Android 17 and 18, who are the main villains of this specific series overall and this storyline, and they're just wreaking havoc over this small little town, you know, killing people, torturing people, destroying cities, destroying landscapes. They're just making a mess out of everything. They're fucking androids, and they hate humans, and they do, you know, we already know the general gist of their characters. So, but overall, I thought that was a pretty interesting scene. It's actually one of my favorite scenes out of the entire episode itself, because I think the great thing about the androids is because they're so human in comparison to other villains in the DBZ universe, you relate to them as real movie villains, if that makes any sense. Because the other villains are aliens, or creatures, you know, demonic creatures. And you don't really relate to them as people because they're the complete opposite of us. They have god complexes, and they're all out to make themselves be the rulers of their existence. But in here, the androids are actually the complete opposite. All they like to do is have fun. They're basically children inside of the bodies of super powerful robots. That's basically what they are. So that's the general gist of their characters. And I loved how the actors really played them out. And I'm just saying, like, it's definitely my favorite scene. And I love the whole Android 17 moment with the gun, because it's so funny how a character like him, who has the basic power to destroy planets, which is what pretty much every DBZ character could do, he uses a gun to torture people because, you know, everyone fears what they know. You know, humans don't fear ki blast because they don't understand the general gist of what that means. So when he puts a gun to the guy's head, it's like, oh, that's a WTF moment, where like shit's about to go down. And that's one of my favorite moments. But anyways, we move off of that and we pan towards this series, Adult Gohan and Future Kid Trunks, which is kind of cool. Once again, they're deviating from the anime, so it's not the iconic moment where, you know, Trunks is obviously in the city and he's staring out into the sunlight, and then pops out goes, you know, freaking this guy wearing Goku's gi, and then you realize, oh shit, it's freaking Adult Gohan. Fucking awesome. So it kind of takes away that moment, which I really would have liked, and I'll get into that a little later. But overall, I think how they introduced them was okay. We get the general gist of that these two characters have obviously been interacting for a long period of time, and they've also been training for a long period of time. So it's kind of, I guess, inadvertently taking some elements of the manga instead of the special, because in the manga they've obviously been taking the android's threat seriously through a long period of time, in comparison to the anime, where it made it seem like, okay, well, this is kind of like the first time these characters kind of meet, and then they start their training. In this specific episode, it's kind of played out in the sense that Trunks and Gohan have been fighting the androids prior a long time, and they obviously have been training together for a specific time period in and of itself. So, but anyways, we get into the fight at hand, and it's just the fighting. I don't want to get into too detailed after it, but overall we get to see Android 17 and 18 fight Trunks and Gohan. And as much as it's badass, it's also kind of like not as brutal as the special was. Like, the special played it out that they had no chance. In this fight, it kind of felt like they were almost on par with the androids, which was kind of weird because, you know, they still lost. It's still a brutal lose, but at the same time, it's not as brutal as the anime, where it's like Trunks is basically at near death, and Gohan obviously loses his arm. So none of that happens. So you can kind of guess that they're kind of fighting on par with the androids, even though the androids are just that tad a bit stronger. But overall, I think that entire sequence is pretty badass. We also get the big explosion, Super Saiyan transformation, which was, I think it was played out a little too soon in the episode, if I say so myself, but it does make sense because in the anime special, Gohan pretty much transforms into a Super Saiyan pretty much instantaneously once he gets into the fight. So it makes sense that it would be very early that we would see a Super Saiyan. But overall, I think the transformation itself was pretty badass. Their fight definitely kicks up a notch after the transformation. And 17 and Gohan just go at it like crazy, which was pretty badass. 18 and Trunks are kind of struggling here and there. But what are you going to do? And of course, the entire battle ends with them kind of blasting their way out and escaping, which I thought was weird because in what, I don't know, I don't know, it kind of just, for me personally, I think the end of the fight was a little too, I don't want to say it sucked, but it just wasn't the way I expected it to be. But at the same time, I kind of see why. You know, they still have a lot to go on with their storytelling with, you know, the future episodes. But overall, God, I just would have liked to have seen that kind of ending. I mean, the ending, as it's still good, but it's still like, okay, well, Trunks is going to die. Gohan is struggling. So they have to get the heck out of there, because if they continue, they're both going to get blown to bits. But them escaping, I don't know, it just, I don't see in what type of universe that any Z-Warrior would just escape from a fight that easily. Ever. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. But overall, still a great sequence in and of itself. The fight was very, very well done. It's definitely the linchpin of this freaking overall episode. But anyways, we move on from there and we get a good piece of dialogue with the two respected characters. Gohan's obviously, you know, healing his wounds, which was a pretty interesting scene, and he's obviously just talking about the fact that he has the world on his shoulders. You know, he's trying to follow in his father's footsteps by being the hero and protector of Earth, and he's obviously struggling. And then we get a good sequence, tiny, very small sequence with Bulma and Trunks, and we get to see this series version of Bulma, which I think was the biggest thing I did not like about this episode. There's a lot of things that I can let go. There's a lot of things that I can just let go, but the Bulma Trunks scene, was the biggest thing that I just did not like about this episode. Everything else that I kind of had problems with, I can let go, and there were things that they changed that I think worked to their advantage. But this one scene, this one sequence with Kid Trunks, where he goes into Capsule Corp, and he's obviously watching his mom, you know, trying to, I guess, in some way kind of create the time-traveling device that Trunks uses in the end of the story, basically. And they have this small, really, really short conversation, and he basically ends it by saying, it's kind of like this, it's kind of like, "Hi Mom, I'm going to go train with Gohan, bye." That's kind of like the end of their conversation, which is like such a letdown, because I get it that DBZ characters usually have guy-guy relationships. That's kind of like the biggest thing about Dragon Ball Z, like, is the guy-guy relationships. I get it. But in this storyline, Bulma's relationship with her son, Kid Trunks, like Trunks' relationship with his mother, Bulma, is just as important as his relationship with Gohan. And I don't think they focused on that much. And I don't know if that's because of, you know, maybe their time schedules with the actors or what have you, or the writers' decisions to cut things short or what have you, or in the editing process, I don't know. But overall, the one sequence that I really was looking forward to, which is that one sequence where Bulma is obviously discussing what she does not want Trunks to do, and Trunks ends up defying her and going and doing it anyways. That's the one moment that I was really looking forward to. Super Saiyan, I've seen it before, and it's cool, okay. You know, the fight, cool, epic, awesome. But the dialogue that they have together is so freaking important to me that was the number one thing I was waiting for. And I did not get it. And that whole sequence of like, "I'm going to train with Gohan, bye." It's just, that was just the biggest downfall of this episode. But anyways, we move on and we get into the ending of this episode, which ends with an entire montage of Gohan and Trunks training for their future battles with the androids. And that's pretty much how the episode ends. And we get a good, tiny little sneak peek into episode 2, which unfortunately does not have a release date. But I guess we're going to have to wait on that. But overall, the episode itself, I think, was good. Even though it's not perfect, this series has a lot of potential. Like, it just... And I don't want to, like, blow too much smoke up their asses or what have you, but this series is definitely, I think, has the potential to be, like, the best Dragon Ball Z fan-made anything on the internet. Like, it has that potential. Like, when I was watching it, even with most of its flaws, when I watched it, all the footage put together, it just felt like if this was a TV show, I would tune in to watch it. Like, if it was, like, let's just say for the sake of the argument, like, if this series was, like, on the CW on weekdays at 8 o'clock, I would freaking tune in to fucking watch that shit. It fucking feels like a TV show, which is, I guess, the best compliment that I can give them. And also, personally, I think which is what they should be trying to do. I mean, like, obviously everybody wants to be like, oh, there should be a franchise and be movies and all that stuff. But for this specific story, if this was a TV show, I would lose my shit. That would be the greatest thing ever. This thing feels like a TV show. And that's the great thing about it. So, definitely kudos to them. Overall, I give it a 7 out of 10. It was definitely a good first episode. Not a great episode that blew my mind or anything, because obviously they did change a lot of things. And the things that they did change, some of the things I didn't like, some of the things I did like. But overall, it's definitely, without, putting down anybody, it's still a good, solid episode to a hopeful and highly potential great web series, which I wish was a TV series. But anyways, moving off of that, after giving my review, I want to give give you some more personal thoughts on other things like the acting, the visuals, the music, and the fighting. First off, the acting, I think, was definitely on par with what they were trying to do. I mean, I think my favorite actor out of everyone who was on this list has to be the actor who plays Android 17. He was phenomenal. He was so badass. He looks just like how I expect 17 to be like. He was sarcastic. He was evil. He was maniacal. He was menacing. He was a douche at the same time. It worked all together. Like, the way I expect 17 to be, he did it. And that was just the best part. The actor who plays Gohan, I think, was also pretty badass. I think he definitely looked the part, definitely acted the part. The number one thing that I had against the actor who played Gohan that I really didn't like, which I wish the editors did different with this project, which is, although Gohan talks to himself a lot, which I think is really weird. Now, granted, characters talk to themselves a lot in cartoons out loud, but in History of Trunks, when you rewatch it, the only time Gohan talks to himself is when he's in dire need of, like, dying. Like, the scene where he loses his arm and he's, like, about to die, and Trunks is about to die. That's when he's talking to himself, because this is the moment where it's like, okay, well, if I don't take this Senzu bean, I'm gonna die. So it makes sense that he's talking to himself, but every single scene after that, he's talking. He has an internal monologue. So I was surprised that they didn't give him an internal monologue. He's talking to himself way too much. It's like, if Batman started talking to himself, we would never take him seriously again. It just wouldn't happen. I mean, the Justice League and James Gordon, they would just have, like, an intervention, and they would just, like, sit him down and be like, look, guy, you need to stop this. You're talking to yourself. You're crazy. You're obviously a crazy person. Stop it. You're out. You need to stop. You need a doctor, and he's not Hugo Strange. You need a real doctor. That's kind of like what they need to do with this Gohan. Granted, he lost a lot of shit. He lost his family. He has no father. His friends are gone, and the only thing he has to look forward to is death, I guess, in this specific storyline. But does he really need to talk to himself? I mean, come on. Future adult Gohan is the most badass of all the Gohans, with the exception of Teen Gohan. But I don't know. The editors just need to stop that. Just don't let him talk to himself anymore. And if you do, let it be an internal monologue. That's all I really ask. But overall, I think the actor did okay with what he was doing. And everybody else was pretty good. Gohan, Android 18, the actress who plays her, I think was good. I remember hearing that several people online really had a problem with her because she didn't look exactly like 18. But then again, what are you going to do? She looks as much as 18 could be in live action. Pretty much. She looks like 18. She has the blonde hair. She has that stupid 80s jean jacket. What else do you need? So I pretty much am okay with the design and look of all the characters. Especially with Gohan. Because I think that's one of the big problems with costume makers with DBZ characters, that they just can't find a way to make a good costume. It's like people. The DBZ characters, specifically Goku, they wear gis. That's what they wear. Martial arts uniforms. They're gis. Just get a gi. Diet orange, whatever, what you have to do, I don't care, but just get a gi. That's there you go. But, you know, what are you going to do? That's an entire debate and rant in and of itself. But overall, I think the actors looked the part, they acted the part, and I think they did a great job with what they were given and what was written in the specific story. So I think it's definitely A+ on their part. And if there was, I guess, a weak spot in all the actors that were there that I did not really care for or liked, I guess, and this is the unfortunate part, has to be Bulma and Kid Trunks. Granted, I don't want to bash them. I don't want to bash anybody. And as much as I really, really don't want to do that, I just did not get into Kid Trunks in this episode. He just was, and that sucks because he's the main focus of this story, and they didn't really do justice to that character. And I guess that has to do a lot with, like, I guess the actor's presence and ability on screen. But overall, I think he was okay, but I just don't think he was on par with everybody else, which really sucks. And you know, it's not their fault. I mean, like, it's difficult in and of itself to find an actor, but it's also very difficult to find a very good child actor. And you know, it's a pain in the ass. But I don't know. I guess I have to watch more episodes to really get into this version of Kid Trunks. And the Bulma thing, once again, it's just one of those things where I would have liked her to have more screen time, and I would have liked her to have that one sequence with Trunks the way she did in the special. But we didn't get that, so that was the big downfall. But overall, I think the actors that we did get to see and get to see act were pretty cool. Android 17 was my favorite part. Android 18, I think, was great. Adult Gohan, I think, was great, even though he talks to himself a little too much. I think still was good. And yeah, the acting was definitely on par with what the writers of this web series gave them. So anyways, moving off of that, the visuals I think were great. The freaking transformation sequence with Super Saiyan I think was definitely the best we've seen online. I mean, I've seen pretty much a lot of Super Saiyan, fan-made Super Saiyan transformations online, and I think this one is definitely the best, personally. I think it's definitely the best. And once again, not trying to blow too much smoke up their asses, but I think it was. And the ki blasts were definitely great. You can definitely see, you know, the Man of Steel reference, visual references here and there, if you will. And I think it worked to their advantage. I mean, every single sequence, whether it be the characters flying, the characters doing their ki blasts, the characters doing their special techniques were great. If there was anything I really didn't like about the specific visuals, had to have been the Kamehameha wave, and that mostly has to do with the fact that Gohan does it at all. I mean, granted, everyone wants to see Kamehameha, but at the same time, you got to remember this is a Gohan who has never trained with Goku, so he doesn't have the abilities or technical power and, you know, and martial arts skills that Goku has. Gohan was only trained by Piccolo. So I thought that was kind of, it was an error on their part. It's debatable. It's really debatable. But in my personal opinion, Gohan doing the Kamehameha wave, which was just a thing that they shouldn't have done. He doesn't know how to do it, and if he did, he never did use it anyway, so it was completely pointless. But overall, I guess they just put it there just to have fun and be like, oh yeah, Kamehameha wave, yeah! So I guess that's, you know, the way they go with it. And also, I really liked the cities that they put in. I liked the references to cities. I really liked the redesign of Capsule Corp, even though I think they could have done it a little bigger and not make it look too much like Tony Stark's pad in Iron Man 3 or what have you. But overall, I think the redesign of Capsule Corp was cool. Everything in the background was great. I mean, the visuals, the cinematography and everything looks beautiful. It looks like how it should be in the manga and anime, which is, once again, a great compliment to them, and kudos to them. I mean, it just looks fucking like the background of the actual Dragon Ball Z universe, which is definitely awesome. The ocean looks like how it, you know, looks like in the anime. The you know, the Rocky Mountains look great. If there was anything I really would have liked to have seen, I guess has to be the specific carnival Toyland, if I'm not mistaken, that their first fight actually takes place. I would have liked to have seen that instead of in the Rocky Mountains, but once again, it's just one of those nitpicky type of things. And at the end of the day, the music was badass. I really like the music. I remember in one of the behind-the-scenes vlogs that the actor who plays 17 said that the music was made by a specific composer that was like on par with Hans Zimmer in his personal opinion. And in my opinion, I kind of guess I would go that far too. I mean, like, every single sequence with the music sounds badass and does kind of sound reminiscent of Hans Zimmer's scores that he does for movies, specifically his superhero comic book scores. So definitely kudos to the composer of Light of Hope series. And at the end of the day, the creme de la creme of any Dragon Ball Z fan-made anything or live-action anything has to go down to the fighting. The fighting was phenomenal. It was great. It was definitely badass. I loved how in-depth we got with the fight, because I thought for a second there they were kind of just going to do like the standard kind of thing where you don't really see everything and you kind of just like go in the air for like 10 minutes and you don't really see anything ever. But no, it feels like how Dragon Ball Z fights should be. You get to get right into the grind of every punch, every kick, every ki blast, every hit that the characters make. You really get to see it and feel it at the same time, which is definitely, once again, a great compliment and kudos to them. So overall, Light of Hope pilot, definitely a great episode. Even though it's not perfect, it has its flaws, but most of them are very nitpicky and only, I guess, fanboys like me would make. But overall, I definitely love this first episode. I think it's great. I think overall the acting was good, even though I have a few problems with the actors who play Kid Trunks and Bulma. That's not really a big thing. The overall episode, in comparison to the anime, even though there's changes here and there, weren't really that big of a deal. Even though I would have liked the beginning to be a lot like the anime. I mean, like, they could have changed everything else. But that one beginning, I'm just saying, just when you get to see Gohan as a Super Saiyan, as an adult, and then you get to see, Bulma and Trunks talk together about what they're going to do with themselves, and Gohan seeing his father die. I just would have loved to have seen those kind of moments, and we didn't get that. But hopefully, they try to do that in future episodes if they could. But overall, I think in my final thoughts for the episode itself, I think is definitely a great solid episode. Like I said in the beginning, this series has so much potential that if they wanted to make a TV show, I would watch it. I'm just saying, like, if this was like on the same, channel and weekdays and time slots of like Flash and Arrow, I would tune in for that shit and I would love it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you DBZ fans would do the same as well. So, but anyways, this has been my review of Dragon Ball Z Light of Hope. Of course, it's a fan-made series, so of course we can't get too, nitpicky with it, but overall this has been my personal thoughts on it. In the comment section below, let me know what you personally think about the first episode. What are your overall expectations for future episodes and the series as a whole? What was your personal thoughts on the acting, the visuals, the music, the fighting? Let me know what you personally think about the differences between the anime and the manga and the episode itself. My personal opinion is that they're definitely sticking close to the special, but you can tell that they coincidentally kind of changed things around to make it seem more like the manga. My only thing is, for anybody who's thinking like, oh, is this canon? Well, this is my basic point to make sure that this could be canon to any of those kind of versions, which is this. At any point that Kid Trunks, becomes a Super Saiyan before adult Gohan dies, then it's manga canon. But if he dies and then he becomes a Super Saiyan, then it's anime canon. So that's generally what you're going to get with. Because I already know I'm going to get tons of questions and comments about like, is this canon or what? We have to wait and see. If he dies and becomes Super Saiyan, then you'll know. But overall, this has been my review of Light of Hope. I definitely can't wait to see future episodes. I hope they don't take too long on uploading future episodes. I'm just saying, I don't want to wait a year in between episodes, people. So, whoever's in charge over at Robot Underdog, please keep that in mind. We don't want to wait a year every single time in between episodes. A couple months I can deal with, but I'm not going to wait an entire year for episode 2, and that's all I'm going to say. But overall, I really enjoyed everything that we got to see, and I can't wait to see future episodes, and I'll definitely be reviewing them unless someone at Robot Underdog says no and tells me to fuck off. Then I won't do it. But if I do, and they don't, tell me to shut up, then I'm going to continue reviewing episodes, and I hope you guys tune in as well. So, at the end of the day, comment below. Let me know what you personally thought about this episode. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. I hope everyone has enjoyed. This has been John 12.